They walked side by side downtown. He did his best to avoid the mush. Maybe he'll buy himself a new pair of shoes. So, what's been up with you lately? Have you written anything new or ugh? Jungkook groaned. Writing has been on his mind ever since Jane presented him with that meeting with his publisher. He has no idea what to do next. I don't even know, found any new men to write about. How very funny, Jungkook. I'm very funny. I'm glad you could finally recognize that. Jungkook tried to suppress a laugh, but it didn't work. You and Daniel seem to be getting along swell. He could see Taehyung's hands curl into fists in his peripheral vision. Snooze fest? Really? Taehyung seemed genuinely shocked. I guess he was playing it up well enough. Yup. Only wanted me for the grumble that escaped Taehyung's throat sent shivers up his spine. He chewed on his bottom lip, waiting for Taehyung's response. I always knew he was bad news. I guess that's something you're right about. They stepped into a little shop that specializes in shoes. Just what Jungkook needed. You still the same size? Jungkook was about to pounce on Taehyung for ever asking such a thing before he realized what he actually meant. Yeah, coated his cheeks at his crude thoughts. He tried to disguise it as just him being cold even though they were inside. He paced through the aisles, taking time to appreciate the details. Every pair was unique. You could even make completely custom ones. Cookie. Taehyung pushed 2 sets of shoe boxes from the other side of the shelf to peek at him. Hi, do you find anything? Jungkook shook his head. No, well, I did. Taehyung grinned. Oh, Taehyung-gi. He thought back to Taehyung's awful choice of shoes at his own concert. He can't match a thing. Although he didn't look too bad right now. Taehyung slid a pair of shoes through the gap he made, presenting the pair to Jungkook. The last pair they had. It made me think of you. His heart had melted inside his chest, creating a sticky, lovesick goo. It clung to his bones and insides, making him nauseous. I like them, a lot. You don't have to get them if you don't want to. I'm not forcing you or anything. He scratched his head, twiddling his curls about on his forehead. No, Taehyung. I really like these. Are you sure? Yup. He advanced towards the register with shoes in hand. Positive? Yup. He set them on the counter to be rung up. 100%. Jungkook brought out his card to pay. Yes. Taehyung's hand gripped his wrist, stopping his motion of paying. I'll pay, Taehyung. It's fine. Jungkook wiggled his wrist around in his grip. Let me go, he chuckled. Nope. Taehyung slid his card into the scanner, finalizing the payment. I have money. Yeah, no, it's just my special treat. Hey, Jungkook smacked Taehyung's shoulder as though it wasn't true. It was. They were in a fancy anthropology store. Everything was expensive and ugly, 2 things that shouldn't coincide. They had tried on fur coats. They looked terrible in all of them. Even with Taehyung's regular extravagant clothing, it looked odd on him. I think we should get them. Jungkook poses in the mirror, feeling quite trendy. Yeah. We'll be trendsetters. Trendsetters it is. Taehyung stole the glasses off of Jungkook's nose and took them up to the register. I didn't think you would actually do it, he mumbled as he followed behind Taehyung. You don't have to buy everything. Yeah, no, well, I want to. It's my prerogative, Jungkook hummed. Where did you learn those fancy words? Are you impressed? No. Jungkook stuck his nose up to the evening sky. What'll it take for you to be? Why do you want to know? Can a man not ask a question? Their battle of questioning had left Jungkook silent. Gotcha. Taehyung pinched Jungkook's side, which made him yelp. He rubbed at his side as his face started to flush. He could still feel Tae-hyung's trace of charisma in his nerves. Hot chocolate. Tae-hyung pointed to a little stand that had accumulated quite the crowd. Yes, please. Jungkook rubbed his hands together in delight. A kind old woman served them 2 steaming cups of hot cocoa. Tae-hyung paid her a $100 bill which he claimed was all he had. They stood under a snow-covered streetlight, bundled tightly in their coats and their hot cups. Jungkook shivered as a cold gust of wind swept in. Chilly night, right? Tae-hyung brought his cup to his frosty lips, gulping down a few sips. A sparkle caught his eye. In the light, a ring glistened on Tae-hyung's finger. Is that the band looked just like his wedding ring? You still have it. Tae-hyung's eyes flicked down to his finger. The smile that flashed across his lips left Jungkook with a melancholy feeling inside. We never. Tae-hyung sighed, his fingers curling into a fist. His eyebrows creased in that oh-so-familiar way. His jaw was tense and steady. Jungkook wanted to paint it with bruises, or hickeys. We never signed divorce papers. Jungkook kept his eyes down to avoid the confrontation. Well, Tae-hyung was right. Jungkook never sent the divorce papers through. It was a thought that never really occurred to him. He thought that if he could leave, they were done. I mean, it's only a piece of paper from the city hall, right? It doesn't mean anything. Everything is figurative nowadays. So, technically, Jungkook could see Tae-hyung take a step closer. His bleak shadow loomed over Jungkook, taunting him. You're still mine. No, his voice was unsure. I'm not yours, Tae-hyung, but you want to be. Tae-hyung took another step forward so the tips of their toes were touching. Jungkook shook his head. It doesn't matter what I want. Tae-hyung not only raised his voice but changed his demeanor. He was trying to rile Jungkook up. Then what does matter, Jungkook? If it's not what you want, then what is it? Jungkook chose not to respond. He knew exactly what it was but he couldn't say it, not with his own words. Tae-hyung knew the answer too. It was all of these rhetorical questions that would only make Jungkook more vulnerable to Tae-hyung's unwavering jaws of romance. We didn't work for a reason. What is it? Really, he pushed and pushed. This is my life. Tae-hyung. Jungkook took a step back to look into his prosecutor's eyes appropriately. I've built my career on us not being together and I can't risk that. I love it too much, but do you love it more than me? His eyes fell once more. But does he even love Tae-hyung? Why is he asking himself that? Of course he doesn't. Tae-hyung broke through Jungkook's atmosphere to whisper awfully close to Jungkook's lips. Do you love your career more than me? The warmth of his breath against Jungkook's lips contrasted with the cold shivers that riddled his body. He sighed. You know I can't. Suddenly, Tae-hyung crashed in like a satellite, kissing Jungkook like it would be the last time. It might. It was uncoordinated, like it was their first kiss, only they knew what they wanted back then. Now, the lines were blurred. His half-empty hot cocoa slipped from his hand, tumbling to the concrete. The warm liquid dribbled out, spreading like a wildfire, but that was the least of his concerns. All he could focus on were the bruising lips that breathed him in like the most addictive drug. Even with the sloppy, spit-smearing, it still had meaning. He could feel it deep in his core. Tae-hyung's hands cupped the side of his face, his thumbs gliding through the dips in his sharp cheekbones. Even with the need for breath, he didn't want to stop. His tongue slid over Tae-hyung's chapped lips, tasting the remnants of chapstick. His heart cried out for more, but it would never be enough. He needed all of Tae-hyung, which he knew he couldn't have. He ripped himself away. his lungs finally taking in a breath. "Do you love your career more than me?" Tae-hyung huffed out between breaths. The sound that was ripped from Jungkook's throat was like a moan but without the pleasure aspect. It pained him. "I can't love you." Jungkook shook his head as he wiped the rich taste of Tae-hyung off of his lips. "I can't." His nose had begun to run from the cold. He tugged his sleeves over his hands in an effort to warm up. "You're being stubborn." "I'm not being stubborn. I'm just doing what's good for the both of us," Jungkook spat out. "How do you know what's good for me?" He had forgotten how scary it was when Tae-hyung raised his voice. He was always very good at keeping calm, but when he did snap, it made Jungkook want to bury himself inside the core of the earth. He had only ever felt so small when Tae-hyung would act out like this. "Goodbye, Tae-hyung." Jungkook made the mature decision to walk off. Leaving Tae-hyung behind was all he could do. Hell, he's been working on doing that for the past 2 years. But it's hard to leave someone behind who always seems to catch back up to you. The curve had become a circle, and the circle a never-ending loop. He took quick paces down the frosty sidewalk. He kept his hands shoved into his pockets with his nose tucked into the collar of his jacket. His chest was heaving as he squeezed through crowds of people, all in massive puffer coats and thick scarves. They were all tucked into street corners like sardines. Jungkook seemed to be the only one who was scanned alive. He wiggled through as quickly as he could to avoid getting stopped and to avoid Tae-hyung. Tae-hyung always ran after him. He always wanted to talk, but not necessarily about the problem. "It's a topicality issue, really." His eyes were trained on the ground below to avoid stepping on anyone's clad toes. While doing this, however, he rammed headfirst into someone's chest. "Oh my God. I'm so sorry." Jungkook attempted to keep his apology brief, which some people call the New York style of apologies. He was already making his exit when the stranger stopped him. "Hey, do I know you?" Jungkook started to panic. His chest rose and sank rapidly. "Probably not. Sorry." He continued to walk briskly, leaving the stranger perplexed at Jungkook's behavior. When he got home, he slipped off his shoes and coat, dumping them both on the floor. His feet were numb and sore from the cold and the long walk. He ambled to his desk and, of course, began to write. His lips quivered as he whispered out the words he was scribbling onto the page. He could still feel the ghost of another pair of lips on his, could still taste him on his tongue. He so badly wanted to wash it out but couldn't get himself to do so. Without warning, a tear dribbled down onto the paper, making the ink bleed and spread. He cursed at his human emotions, wiping his eyes promptly. He had work to do. There's no time to cry. There's no room for feelings in the real world.